Hi, this is Paul Terjeson, Oregon Farmer Home Brokers, Keller Williams, Mid-Willamette. Today we're out on a development property, a rural development property that has a Measure 49 on it. And I thought we would take a moment to kind of dive into some of the history of the Measure 49 development properties, how it came about, and what you can possibly do. So we've done quite a few Measure 49s for our clients to help build as much value out of their farms as possible. If they did in fact get an approved Measure 49, we help them through the development process. But first, let's kind of talk about how this all started. And we'll do a brief history. We'll get through it pretty quick. So in 1972, 1973, Oregon passed our comprehensive land use laws, and we were the second state in the nation to do that. It was pretty progressive. It was one of our best governors, Tom McCall, that was pushing it through. And the idea was to keep our development inside the city limits and keep our rural farmland from having unfettered development. So it was to keep the farms, and the cities in the cities. And it's probably one of the greatest legislative feats that Oregon's done in the last century. The compromise was, if you own property outside the city limits, you have a reduced tax burden. And that was the compromise for the farmers that gave up their development rights. So, move up to 2004, there was a ballot measure that got passed called a Measure 37. It basically stripped all of the regulations off of rural farm owners so they could develop whenever they wanted to. They could put in whatever they wanted to. They could do a subdivision out in the middle of a farm field. And it only applied to families that owned farms or owned rural property prior to 1972. So it was really just for a select group of people that it got passed. So it's totally chaotic. I mean, I'll give an example of why unfettered development in the rural countryside is not always the greatest idea. We're in North Albany right now, and just north of us there was a development where they had manufactured homes on half-acre lots. And for the longest time, for decades and decades, they just couldn't get their wells right. They always had coliform bacteria, they were always contaminated. And so the city finally ran a sewer line all the way out to them because they just couldn't get it right. Made sure everybody got hooked up to the sewer. And the day everybody got hooked up to their sewer, all their wells went dry. So as you can imagine, all that septic that was going down into the ground was going into the aquifer, and they were drinking their own effluent. So unfettered development, not a good idea. So move up to Measure 49. Measure 49 kind of really reined in the Measure 37. Measure 49 basically, for the most part, allowed you to build two lots, have two separate lots on your piece of property if you had applied for a Measure 37. And then you could build on the master lot, which is we call that the one with the most land. So on this particular site, it's 72 acres. It's high-value soils. You're allowed to do two 2-acre lots on high-value soils, and then you could build a house on the remaining 68 acres. So it definitely squeezed down the unfettered development potential that was, kind of the purpose behind the Measure 37. Measure 49 makes it a little bit more reasonable. And then the lots have to be a certain size. So if it's high-value farm ground, then your 2-acre lots is the maximum that you can go. And if you're on less valuable soils, you can go as high as 5 acres, but that's it. Not every Measure 49 is the same. There's always some, each one might be a little bit different, but this particular piece of property is the most typical type of Measure 49 that we've run across. So most families, let's say mom and dad went through the process. Now the kids have the property, and as long as it stays within the family, they still get access to going through the development. If they sell it to somebody outside of the family, there's a sunset. You only have 10 years to get through the process, and then you lose it. So every county is a little bit different. We've had great success throughout the valley, with a couple exceptions. Have had some horrible experiences with some counties. Like Lane County, for example, it was rough. We kind of got the sense that they didn't really want us to go through the Measure 49 process, even though it's the legal right, and felt like there was a lot of roadblocks unnecessary roadblocks that they put in front of us. And the other one's Deschutes County. Don't try it. It's ridiculously hard. But you go to any place else, Lynn, Benton, Yamhill, everybody's gonna treat it a little bit different. You just gotta know how to get through the process. But once you do, you get through the process, you go through your subdivision, you've maximized the value of your property. If you sell a piece of property with a Measure 49 on it, you really have to discount it pretty heavily because there's no assurance that you'll be able to get all the way through the process. So, Oregon Farm Home Brokers, we've got a team set up. We help you through the process. We have surveyors, we have land use consultants, we have people that do test pits for septics. We pretty much have the whole team put together if you guys are doing Measure 49s. So one last bit, this is the most important part, is you will not get approved for a Measure 49 unless you get a septic test pit approved. For the most part, we've always found areas on a property to get an approved test pit. It may be a sand filter system, it may be a $30,000 system, $35,000 system, but for the most part, we can usually get into the standard septic sites. So, thanks for going through the process with me. I kind of like to geek out on some of these development issues. Measure 49 is a really great measure if you own a property that has a Measure 49 approved on it. My advice to you is go through the process, get it done, because you may lose it someday.